This is Joe Wong, and I'm here with Optic Daps. Daps, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
So, I'm good. Walk me through the event. You guys unfortunately got out of the group stage, but you had a good showing. Just walk me through the matches real quick.
Okay, I'll start from the top then. We started off playing Astralis, a match that we were pretty confident going into. Obviously, we're heavy underdogs going into that match, but it's a match that we prepared for. Um, we knew we did a mock veto, so like usually we do mock vetoes. Every team does that. They try and figure out what map they're gonna play. And we knew we would play Inferno or Train between Astralis, and they ended up banning Train instead of Inferno. So before the LAN, we were preparing to play either Inferno or Train, obviously. And so I watched a few demos of them on Inferno, watched a few demos of them on Train, so we were fairly prepared for how they played. And how the match started, we won Pistol technically, or we would have won it, but then the bomb didn't spawn, so we had to replay it, and we ended up losing and going down 3-0. And we showed a lot of resilience, which is something we've lacked in the past. We stayed mentally strong, and we grinded back a good T side on Inferno, which was really impressive. And I was not expecting us to get that many rounds on our T side, considering how good they are on CT side in general. So yeah, the first match I was really proud of the team, and we knew how they played and we exploited that, and on top of knowing how they played their CT side, we also performed well. And then we just closed it out CT side, something that we usually struggle with is our CT sides and closing out matches, and everything just went our way and we played well.
So you talk about the mock veto. Do you think so? Not every tournament runs the same veto. For stuff like majors, where they have that random sort of randomizer at the end there. Do you think the game or the scene needs kind of this standard veto, like pick ban? Like in Dota, they have a very standardized pick ban system.
Um, I think it is kind of standardized when you say. Most tournaments do use a similar format. For BO1s, it's always ban till one map's left. And then BO3s, it's generally ban, pick, ban. Um, so in that sense, it is kind of standardized. I don't really see many tournaments doing like ban for BO3s or something like that.
But I mean, for like Valve majors, it's like
They do the randomized third map.
then randomized.
Yeah, I don't necessarily mind that. Other tournaments other than the majors do that. So Gfinity, which was the event we were at the week prior to this one, they had that system as well. So that's something that you just have to work with. I think having multiple different styles of banning is fine, as long as the teams know prior to that that's the style of system they're going to be using.
So you beat Astralis, then you lost to G2, and then you came up against Luminosity, and you had two really close maps against them. Particularly Inferno seems to be a pretty good map for you guys. How do you feel that it's kind of in limbo right now, as they brought back Nuke and then took out Inferno? So some tournaments are still running Inferno in active duty. Some tournaments will soon eventually be moving to Nuke. How do you guys feel about that?
Obviously, not just because we're good on it or comfortable on Inferno. I feel Inferno is a map that shouldn't have been removed. I feel like there's other maps, Dust 2, not just because we're bad on it, but I feel like it's a pretty stale map. Cobble, we're pretty decent on that map, but I think Cobble's another map that could be looked at again potentially. Another map, I'm not too sure, but I think Inferno's a map that in the history of CS has been a fun map to watch, and I understand the concerns with it, and I think there are flaws in the map, like Banana, the pillars, you can't shoot through them, and like there's flaws with every map, but I think Inferno's a map that could, like, if you compare Inferno now compared to the new Nuke, it's night and day. Like, the Inferno's still a better map tenfold. Like, the new Nuke needs so much work that even if they come out with a few updates next week and then the next week a few more updates, it's going to take like 10, 15 updates before that map is good in my eyes, but I've never played it competitively, so I can't criticize it that much. But just playing it in matchmaking here and there, and just kind of seeing the layout and just theory crafting, kind of talking about it with our team. 'Cause we have one over the new nuke because it's in the minor. So we have been preparing on the new nuke for a bit, just theory crafting, talking about it, and it's just such a T-sided map now that it's completely changed how the whole map. Like anyone who was good on nuke previously, like none of that matters anymore in my opinion. Like it's completely new map, and I think it's a completely new map in the wrong ways.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about, I guess, this trend that Valve has been doing with the, new maps? Like they revamped Overpass, or they brought out Overpass, they revamped Cobblestone, and now revamping Nuke, all sort of trending towards, if not totally T-sided, at least, 8-7 or at least equal compared to their counterparts in like 1.6, where Cobble and Nuke were way more CT favored. How do you feel about that? Do you think all maps need to be neutral, or just generally, how do you feel?
I don't think that's a good way. I mean, with Valve, it's hard because they're doing it also for the matchmaking crowd, not just the pros. It's not like if they were doing it just for us and they would just ask us and then everything would be fine for us. But obviously, CT side nuke in general for matchmaking players, I can see like anytime you get CT side as a match in a matchmaking, you're probably going to win 14-1 because there's not like the old nuke is a map that like, you needed a lot of strategy to grind rounds, and that's part of the reason why I liked nuke. I liked playing against teams, and if you prepared really well T-side nuke and you got more than 3 rounds on T-side nuke, you probably win the match if you're a good nuke team. Like we used to play I by Power on nuke, and famously I by Power CT side nuke was like their best CT side. And there's a few matches where we got like 3 or 4 rounds, and like that in itself was an accomplishment for us. And we played the close matches where like we'd lose 16-14 or get close and come back, and that's part of the reason why I like nuke. I like the fact that it was really, really CT sided, and good teams would be able to get rounds on it on T side.
Do you think it CT favored maps because the economy side is balanced towards terrorists because of all these CT sided maps from the past? Do you think it like back a couple of years ago, or in 2015, 2014, where we had that sort of Tech 9 crisis, where pistols were super strong? Do you think that still are? Do you think that affects CT sided maps because you could get that quote unquote lucky headshot with a Tech 9 across the map or something, and that propels you towards that extra T side round, where in a normal game you'd have to use like an actual tactic or something to get that 4th round.
So sorry, just to reiterate, like just you mean like
Yeah, like if the pistol balance affected the super CT sided maps.
I wouldn't. I don't really know what to say too much on that. But in terms of just pistols in general, they're all overpowered. Like P250 is overpowered. 5.7, CZ, Tech 9 obviously is still really overpowered. I think in general, just the game's very economy based. So our struggles obviously are on CT sides, or if we lose pistol round and we don't eco them, the first gun round is going to be hard, because if we force buy second round, we're not going to have a lot of utility on the first gun round, and if we lose the first gun round, we're already down 5-0 on CT side, and that could be CT side Furno, that could be CT side Mirage, Nuke, whatever map it is, CT sided or not. It's hard, and that's one thing our team's been sort of playing with is, do we buy second round or do we just buy a pistol and not buy full armor and everything and have some utility for that first gun round? But since pistols are so overpowered, it's like, why would we not buy second round? Because we still have over a 50% chance to win the round, probably, because it's pretty much just like having a gun. And especially if they're buying Mac 10s, P250 armor can beat a Mac 10 in most cases. So it's in terms of like the economy, I think there's problems, and I don't know. All the pistols are overpowered from top to bottom.
But do you think that's a strategic choice by Valve? Because I mean, there were some slight nerfs to the pistols, and now there is that choice of, do I force buy second round or save all my money for utility and nades and stuff for the actual buy round? Because I don't know if you agree, but I feel CS for CTs anyway has gravitated towards heavy grenade usage, to the fact that if you don't have a strong buy round with all those mollies and smokes and everything, then the terrorists have a pretty heavy favorite, because they have way more set smokes now, and the executes are a lot stronger. So do you think, like, basically, do you want pistols to get nerfed so heavily into the ground that the only option is to just save for the big fourth round buy?
Um, that's kind of a hard question. I want pistols to be. I want them to, like, you should pay what you get. So when I'm buying a $500 pistol or Tech 9, I shouldn't be able to just like two-shot a guy with an M4. Like, there should be like a distinct difference between having a Tech 9 and an M4. You're spending an M4. You're spending 4 or 5 times the amount you are on a Tech 9. Thanks, man. So I think in that sense, the economy system in CS:GO is flawed, and I think it's something that I didn't play 1.6, but I know just from people that come back from 1.6 that Glocks and USPs, like, you even see teams these days sometimes just winning a full USP eco. Like, we did it to Energy on Overpass. Like, even USPs to an extent are like overpowered. Like, all the pistols are overpowered in some sense, in some scenarios. So I personally don't know like all the little fixes, but there's tons of like things that Valve can do to fix the game, but we also have to take into consideration that CS:GO is not 1.6, and that this is its own game, and that's just how the game's been for a long time. And I don't think there's even a point to change the pistols at this point, because it's so far in that you're pretty much changing the game if you're gonna just completely remove that, and whether it's for the good or for the worse, I'm not sure.
All right, let's talk about Optic as a team. You recently let go of Shazam and picked up Mixwell, and you guys, have seen some pretty good results since then. How has he sort of meshed with the team? I'm not sure if he came from another team. I haven't really heard of him, but he kind of just appeared, as a pickup for you guys, and he's been doing pretty well.
So I guess I'll do background on Mixwell. So Mixwell came from a team called G-Bots. G-Bots was the best Spanish team, I'm pretty sure. Like, I watched a lot of their games. They seem to be the best Spanish team by far. And just, they had decent amount of success. I did a lot of scouting. Like, I was given like hints towards players of who we could potentially pick up in Europe, like upcoming talent, younger players, and he was one of them. And out of all the people I looked at, Mixwell stood out. So I looked even farther into him. I watched demos of him from like 2 years ago, and you could see like progression. You could see just like his natural skill level was above a lot of people. Like, even if I go back to NA, if I look at the best NA players, he's individually skilled. He's better than probably all of them, or 98% of them. So that was one big thing that we wanted. Obviously, you want good players, right? You want highly skilled people. And then the second selling point, I'd say, would be just talking to him. His mentality compared to other North American players that we could have potentially got, or even the ones we couldn't get, was a lot different from people I talked to in the past. So that was another big selling point. That was another... Yeah, it's me. So that was another big reason we wanted him, was just his mindset was a lot different from North American players in terms of his motivation, experience in a different scene, will to win. I guess it's motivation, kind of the same thing. So just a lot of different traits and skill sets that we couldn't get with other players in our region.
So is he living in Spain right now, or is he in America?
He's currently living with me. Yeah.
And so I guess what do you see as the in-game leader? How do you, I guess, see this team moving forward? What are your, I guess, predictions or goals as a team generally for the North American scene or internationally?
You're talking about just our team, right? Yeah. In terms of the North American scene, we've always been near the top four when LG came, like top 4 or 5. Online, I'd say our results between C9 and Liquid are pretty split. We're pretty 50-50 with C9 and Liquid online. At least we haven't played them on LAN in a long time. And with CLG is a team we match up well against. I think online we haven't lost them in a long time. So CLG is always a team that we like to play online. I haven't played them on LAN since we beat them at X Games in Aspen when we were Liquid, which was like 2 years ago now or something. So, yeah. So in terms of like head-to-head NA on LAN, we don't play NA teams a lot on LAN, and I think we're in the top 4 still. I would say at least, like not being cocky or egotistical. LG is the team that we have a hard time to overcome. We had a good showing against them at this event on LAN, which is impressive. But LG is just such a hard team to play against that it's a grind, and it was kind of this. It's kind of like how we used to play I by Power in the past when our team was working our way up. You know, we would scrim I by Power every day, losing 16-2, 16-3, constantly getting destroyed by them. But over the course of a year, we progressed, and that's just what we have to keep doing with Luminosity. Is we just have to keep playing them and getting used to how they play, and eventually we'll pull a win out.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Luminosity and I guess Tempo Storm. And I think a third Brazilian team just got picked up by Winout. How do you feel about their, I guess, presence in the NA scene now? Do you think it's been a good thing, or do you see them as more sort of like, I guess, rivals or teams to beat?
I think Luminosity and Tempo Storm and any other Brazilian team that wants to come to North America is a great thing, because in terms of the difference between the players, between the North American players and the Brazilian players, I notice is just motivation and the will to win is the big thing. It's not like you look at NA, like there's tons of top players in NA that I can just list off, like JDM, Tarek, Shroud, Nothing. The list goes on, like Liquid, Nitro, Hiko, Kusta. Like there's so many like skilled players in North America, but the distinct difference I notice between the two regions is just the will to win, like the hunger. Like you see like how much it means to them, how much they want to win. And I feel like that's something that North American teams lack. And I'm not saying like these teams don't care. Obviously every team in North America wants to win. Like there's no question, but the work ethic and just the amount of time you see them put in, and just everything just seems different. Like when I compare North American teams to Luminosity, like you see how far they've gotten in such a short period of time. But in North America, we've had the resources for longer than them, and I wouldn't say it's because all of them are better than the North American players. And every Reddit thread says, oh, you need a NA super team or dream team to solve the problem. That wouldn't solve anything. You would just get 5, maybe more skilled players put together that have the same mindset. And I think the mindset is the biggest obstacle for North American teams, not the people you're playing with. So that's my opinion on that.
So I mean, do you see, there's been articles and there's been threads of people saying NA has a very stat-based mentality. Everyone's focused on stats, and then there was a whole thing when people were looking for in-game leaders, specifically like Cloud9 and stuff like that. They were really searching for either a 5th player to be their in-game leader or a coach. Do you think that NA has, I guess, a focus on stats or that frag hungry nature, and do you think there's anything that can change that?
I would say currently it's not as prominent. There's tons of players I see now that have improved in terms of their mindset. I think most improved player is Elige. Like when I first played with him, he was kind of like that, and I called him out on it in an interview, and he called me out on it. He's like, "Why do you say that about me? Like I don't care about stats." And
When you were
it,
still on Team Liquid?
no, this is what after I got replaced, and that was just like my opinion. That's how I felt the atmosphere was when I was on the team. But he's become like, in my opinion, the best rifler on Liquid. Like Elige has become the best player on Liquid, in my opinion, especially recently at these current events. So there's players that have definitely improved quicker than others in North America, but it's slow, and I can't call out other people because I don't know how they are. I'm sure there are players in top teams in NA that do care about stats still, and that may hurt the team part of the game, but stat culture exists in every team. I'm sure there's a player on Luminosity that cares more about stats than others. I'm sure there's players on European teams that care more about stats than others. So I don't think it's necessarily always a bad thing, but if you have too many players that care about how they do individually, then it can create problems.
Okay. Um, let's talk a little bit about, since you brought up Elige. Let's talk about Team Liquid a little bit. So back last year, you were on Team Liquid, and now you're in a team with Nafly, who was also on Liquid. Did you, when you formed Optic, did you search out Nafly as sort of a player that you wanted to work with again? And was it because you were, on a teammate with him?
Yeah. So I took a season off after I got replaced on Liquid, and I didn't. I had some offers, not like good, very good offers, to in-game lead for other teams, but I took my time and I sort of had a plan of piecing together a roster, and I planned to sort of try and get our old Denial team back together as best I could. And I ended up getting Shazam back eventually. I ended up getting NAF back pretty quickly because Luminosity. Well, when they're Winter Fox now, but the old Luminosity lineup replaced NAF because some problems or something. But NAF is sort of the player that he might have had some sort of internal problems with the team before, but he's got so much talent hidden that you kind of like have to like have him on your team. And I have past experience with him, and I enjoy playing with him, and it was just a no-brainer for me.